We just have an AP call that Thad Cochran wins this race. Thad Cochran has won the runoff. An improbable U-turn for the political fortunes of Thad Cochran, who everyone had written off, who looked dead in the water against McDaniel. He battled to essentially a tie in the June 3rd primary, has now come from behind, I think you have to say, and beaten the odds to be on the ballot come this fall for a 7th turn. Robert, is there a reaction in the room right now?
The room does not yet know. They're not putting it up on the board yet. The AP has called it, MSNBC has called it, but here they're still looking intently at the board, hoping.
Christina, this is really, I mean, the recriminations from this are going to be nuclear, because I mean, you are talking about the absolute third rail. First of all, the third rail of American politics, 50 years after Freedom Summer, that this is happening in the state in which a white Republican incumbent is managing to court these black voters to come out. That's going to be the story, whether or not the numbers bear that out. That's the story Tea Party activists are going to be talking about in the weeks and months after this.
Yeah, and so things that we'll be looking for is, does it engage them in other races? Possibly. There are still primaries ahead. There are still places where they can oust incumbents, you know, either from independent challenges or in a few of the primaries coming forward. But, you know, this is a really interesting dynamic here. I mean, earlier today, Chris McDaniel sent out a fundraising email, or really like a get out the vote pitch, basically calling out John McCain for betraying the state of Mississippi and the country for supporting Thad Cochran, his Senate colleague. I mean, these are some really strong bits of language. And we had a big story that they spent $17 million combined on this race, you know, just to what? You know, what's going to happen? It's still going to be a Republican senator, and you've got all of this warfare. The Republicans can't be all that thrilled that they spent all this money.
This was such a bitterly contested race, Robert Costa. I mean, you had the 4 supporters who were arrested and charged with an alleged conspiracy to break into the nursing home of the ailing wife of Thad Cochran, to take pictures of her for some as yet completely unexplained dirty trick. You had a Cochran supporter arrested for tearing up yard signs. You had Cochran's daughter posting about McDaniel, the McDaniel campaign with reprisals. Given that toxic nature of the race, do you think we're going to see a concession from McDaniel tonight, given how tight it is?
It certainly has been one of the most personal, bitter, ugly races in the 2014 cycle. I think what you're going to see from McDaniel tonight is a lot of disappointment. The Tea Party and the conservative movement nationally believe that he was their last best hope this year to get a scalp, to get a moderate Republican up on the wall and claim victory. But I think you're nailing it, Chris. The controversies that swirled around McDaniel's campaign has almost crippled him in the final 3 weeks. Instead of focusing on a fiscal message, focusing on a hawkish message perhaps in foreign policy, it was all about questions about Facebook postings, attacks on Senator Cochran's daughter, a controversy over those 4 arrests last month. That was a distraction that hurt McDaniel.
Christina, we've also seen the kind of Republican Party writ large in Mississippi go to bat for Thad Cochran, which isn't surprising at one level. I mean, he's been there for 6 terms. But it also struck me the subjects a part of this might be, you know, there are a lot of politicians, Republican politicians, sitting around Mississippi who want to be a senator from Mississippi someday, and they don't necessarily want to watch this young man, Chris McDaniel, walk into a seat that he could have for the next 4 terms.
Yeah, that's definitely it. I mean, you know, Thad Cochran is 76 years old, and certainly, you know, he could retire in the next time. We all thought he might retire this term, actually. He was kind of dared into not retiring. And when he said that he was going to run, and then the Tea Party challenge came right out of the woodwork. I mean, McDaniel was one of the more organized Tea Party challengers on Republican primary ballots this year. He knew early that he was going to run. They really knew what the focus points of this race were going to be. The Cochran people went after him for saying he wouldn't necessarily have supported Katrina aid, you know, back when that happened in 2005 and the funding that they put through in 2006. So, you know, it was real nasty. And that is a deep bench in Mississippi that's sort of waiting to see what's going to happen. But it's also, I mean, it just goes to show that all politics is local because of what Thad Cochran was able to bring to his state, both in resources, both in sort of his personality. That's what ultimately rallied people behind him.
It also shows that Thad Cochran is an old dog who's got a few tricks. politics because Dave Wasserman, someone I really follow and respect from the Cook Political Report, just tweeting, looking at county data, Cochran's win is almost entirely attributable to a large turnout increase among black voters between June 23rd and June 24th. That's between the primary and runoff. And Robert Costa, if that holds in the data tomorrow, I think the Tea Party activists of Mississippi are going to be apoplectic.
They're already apoplectic. As he roamed around this cavernous conference center here in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Matt Kibbe of FreedomWorks was frustrated. He said that the national GOP, the establishment, is, quote, intellectually bankrupt. You're having a lot of eye rolls here. There's fury and disappointment in this room. They thought McDaniel was their horse to ride in 2014, and they think the establishment run around the corner, got black voters, independents, and Democrats to help get Cochran to win this primary.
Christina Bellantoni, final thoughts.
It's extraordinary because really, again, it's nice to have surprises in politics because you don't see this happen a lot. Eric Cantor lost his seat a couple weeks ago, and now Thad Cochran will be returning.
It's funny we're in the situation which it's a surprise that Thad Cochran is winning, is going to be the Republican nominee in the state of Mississippi. Of course, it is a far cry from where we were recently. Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call and Robert Costa from The Washington Post. Thank you both tonight. I really appreciate it.